Welcome, everyone, to Davos Fingers coverage of the House of the Dragon. This is episode 127, The Heirs of the Dragon. I am Scaddy, and with me, as always, is my buddy Matt.
Hello, everybody. So welcome to this coverage of something that we've never really done before. We're covering a TV show. This is nuts.
And we're doing video and audio.
And you can actually see your faces. This is really scary.
Weird.
Yeah, Scad's got his Vote Dick Crab shirt on.
I do.
I've got my Dave Matthews Band shirt on. We're going to see Dave Matthews next week at the Gorge. It's going to be awesome. We've always done
Engorged at the Gorge. Have they done?
Somebody's had
on
the
Dave.
That. Yeah.
Engorged at the Gorge.
Engorged upon edibles at the Gorge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've always done things like Films Get Fingered, where we've talked about the movies that we like and the movies that we dislike. But this is kind of a brand new thing for us, covering episode by episode, the House of the Dragon series.
Yeah, very exciting. It's new content. We haven't had new content in this fandom for a while. Everybody's really excited about it. And Matt and I just decided, what the hell? Let's go for it.
So are we.
So here we are. So we're going to keep this first section real short and quick so we can get into the episode. We're going to try to keep these episodes actually really short compared to what you're used to with Davos Fingers if you're a regular listener. If you're not, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So we are going to be putting out one of these episodes every week for the public, both on YouTube and through Podbean for our podcasting. Weekly releases the first for Davos Fingers, like we said. They'll come out Friday mornings-ish. And can serve as both a reminder of what happened in the previous episode, but also get people a little bit excited for the upcoming episode, as we'll have a little bit of teaser for what's coming. On our Patreon side, for those of you that are patrons, our billing is still frozen. We're still figuring out exactly what content we want to offer as bonuses, so that's still frozen, but more info coming on that in September.
Yeah, so these episodes are going to be pretty simple. We're going to break it up into two parts. So the first part, we're going to run through the episode roughly in order, chatting about things as we go, very Davos Fingerian, hitting all the high points. Sometimes we might make comparisons to the Fire and Blood book because we like that too. And Davos Fingers is principally a book podcast, so we would be remiss, I think, if we weren't talking about the book as well. But largely it's going to be about what we're seeing on the screen and what we think of it. So that'll be the first part of each episode. The last part, for you longtime Davos Fingers listeners, the return of Davos After Dark. Only it's now called Dragons After Dark.
Because we're clever.
Yes, quite clever.
Switched it up.
So that first part of the episode is going to be spoiler free. We're not going to talk about things that happen in the books ahead of what has happened in the episode that we are discussing. That's for all of our listeners that maybe haven't read Fire and Blood yet and don't want to be spoiled about some of the things that might happen later on. So Dragons, I almost said Davos, Dragons After Dark. We'll get into some of that spoilery stuff and hypothesize about what might happen in the next episode of House of the Dragon, in this case being episode 2.
Yes. And lastly, if you want to contact us to chat about the episode at all, give us some tips, pointers, have questions, anything you want to reach out about us for, we love to hear from you. Email at wearedavosfingers@gmail.com. We are on Twitter all the time at davosfingers. You can find us on the Facebooks and reach out there, or you can check out the aforementioned patreon.com/davosfingers. Should we just dive into it, Matt? Should we do it?
Let's go, man. We start at the Council of 101, right?
We do. And I thought this was a really effective opening scene for the series. Reminded me a little bit, I mean, not exactly, but a little bit of Lord of the Rings, how there's just so much dense information they're trying to give you. And in Lord of the Rings, the film, they have that wonderful opening intro that's just very dense, but it does a great job of kind of filling you in. I think this does a good job too. 14 claims to try to be the next ruler, and they narrowed it down to 2 and eventually landed on Viserys. What do you think, Matt?
I loved it. First of all, just the choice to have Rhaenyra narrating was excellent. You brought up Lord of the Rings. It's reminiscent of Galadriel narrating that. And I thought it was just beautiful. Now, Scad, how about Harrenhal?
Yeah.
How awesome was that to see?
Yeah, really cool. Very cool to see. You can see almost like it's described in the series, like the almost like dripping candles, right? They're at various heights because they've just been melted down. Very
Right.
cool.
Yeah. You got a great idea of the majesty of that castle and also the ruin of it. Oh, it was great. I thought it was beautiful. Couple differences in the books. Can we quibble about some minor things?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, I'm used to saying the books because we're usually talking about A Song of Ice and Fire. I should just say
it's really
the book.
just the one book.
We just need to get used to saying the book.
I mean, I guess there's two. There's also the World of Ice and Fire.
That's
right?
true. That's true. Yeah.
Anyway.
Jaehaerys actually did not attend the Great Council in person.
He did not.
Right? He was not there.
That's right. He wanted to stay out of it. I don't think he wanted to tip his hand at all toward a direction. He wanted to leave it to the lords and really let them choose.
You guys figure it out.
Interesting. Yeah.
Let me know what you come up with.
Interesting path.
Yeah. Great managerial style. The two Great Council claimants in the show, it's Viserys and Rhaenys. In the book, it was actually Viserys and Rhaenyra, who was Rhaenys' son.
Yeah. Yeah. In the books, Rhaenyra is younger. I think he's 8 or 10. I can't remember.
Yeah, he's just a kid. Mm-hmm.
He's just a kid, and that was one of the knocks against him. They've replaced that with Rhaenys, and you'll notice that Matt and I pronounce these names differently sometimes. I have a whole system for how I name my Targaryens, trying to follow a pattern. So Rhaenys is how I say that name. But yeah, I didn't love it. I don't love how they've done it, but I get it. I think they're trying to set up more conflict between these two specific characters,
right?
And so it works. But
in the shows, you got to streamline things a little bit,
yeah.
And I think it works. I think it works too. Just a little reminder that Jaehaerys had those two sons who were just awesome sons, right? It's always the good that die young when it comes to Targaryens, right?
Yeah, Aemon and Baelon. Yep.
And Rhaenys was Aemon's daughter. Aemon was the oldest and was the acknowledged heir before his untimely death. He was killed with the crossbow, right? Yes.
Yes, an errant shot. It wasn't actually even aimed at him.
Only the good die young.
Yep.
Baelon, his younger brother, he was Viserys' dad and also Daemon's dad. And he died of a burst belly. I think burst appendix or something like that. But,
yeah, you can never have enough heirs, and Jaehaerys and Alysanne had plenty, but still ended up with this succession crisis. One more difference, and they did this with Game of Thrones too. These characters are very much aged up. Viserys in Fire and Blood is only 23 or 24, I think, at the Council 101. Here, they don't give you an age, but he certainly looks much older. And that goes for Rhaenys as well.
Right. And so that happened in 101. Viserys, in reality, takes the throne in 103, just 2 years later.
That's
in Fire and Blood.
Tell us whether it happens right now in this, right? We don't know exactly when he took the throne.
Sure. But we do have Aemma dying in 105, just 2 years after Viserys had taken the throne.
In Fire and Blood, yes.
In Fire and Blood. Whereas in the show, it says in the opening text that Viserys had ruled for 9 years. So they did elongate that time period a little bit. Any ideas why?
I think to age up Rhaenyra so that she was older when all those things happened.
She was about 8. She was in Fire and Blood, right?
She was born in 97 AC, 105. Yeah, she was about 8. So I think they did it probably to age her up. But it has some interesting ramifications. We won't go into those here because spoilers, but it has some interesting ramifications for other characters, I think. We might go into that in the Dragons After Dark section. We'll see.
Right. Anything else on the council?
No, I don't think so. Some you can see them trying to kind of tie it back to Game of Thrones here and there thematically, and directly referencing Daenerys in the.
And you see it.
In the 172 years.
I thought that was brilliant, though. I thought that was great for the casual show watcher.
Yes.
That immediately lets you go, okay, Danny was this. This is
Right.
this. Perfect.
Right. Totally. I think it makes sense for what they're doing. Let's move on to the next scene is really just kind of a beautiful opening flight sequence with Cyrax carrying Rhaenyra, and she lands and has a quick discussion with Alicent, and then goes in to see her mother, Emma. Beautifully shot, I think. It's only a model. I don't think it's real. I think this is all digital. I don't think it's only a model, but it looks lovely.
It was the model that Jaehaerys was designing later on in the episode, chipping away at.
Yeah, maybe.
That was it. Yeah,
maybe. What do you think of the dragon, man?
Beautiful. I loved it. I loved the entire shot. Not only was it beautiful to see the majesty of the Targaryens, but it was beautiful to see King's Landing and the Red Keep at the height of a peacetime, right? Yes. When things weren't ravaged by war and there wasn't that stress and some of the things that you see in Game of Thrones. It was cool to see the dragons flying overhead and the people walking around in the streets don't even look up at Cyrax.
Yeah.
Like they're just used to it.
This is normal.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And I think that served as a really nice introduction to the series and what the attitude is towards the Targaryens and dragons and what life is like, at least in King's Landing right now. I thought it was effective.
Yeah, me too. What I didn't think was effective is those poor dragon keepers. Man, they just give them looks like they haven't bathed in weeks and they get a stick. They got like charcoal all over them. Those poor guys. Let's take care of them a little bit.
Dragons don't like the scent of charcoal, and so it helps keep them alive. Scent nor taste.
It's canon now.
Yeah. By the way, what does a dragon smell like, do you think?
I don't know.
Brought up a couple of times.
I don't know. I hesitate to guess.
It sounds like it's not like great, but
yeah. Well, you hear about like horsey smell, right?
Yeah.
It's probably like a similar idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except not mammalian. Reptilian.
I had an iguana as a kid, and that thing stunk to high heaven.
There you go. There's
so maybe that's what it is.
Congratulations. All the hot takes here at Davos Fingers.
At Davos Fingers. You could not keep that tank clean enough, man. It stunk all the time. But he was a good little guy.
One of my kids wants a lizard. I will make sure to continue saying no.
Keep saying no, pal.
Yeah,
keep saying no.
Yeah.
I also loved the soundtrack. The soundtrack was beautiful at this scene.
The score is lovely, reminiscent of Game of Thrones throughout.
Throw little themes in there,
but unique enough as well. And very lovely. What do you think of this Alicent Rhaenyra meetup? Meet cute.
The meet cute, exactly. Yeah, some big time sexual tension, huh?
Felt like they went right for it.
Oh yeah,
it feels maybe a little one-sided.
That look that Rhaenyra gives Alicent when she turns around and goes back up into the carriage thing. Oh yeah,
a little bit, but also there's something there too from Alicent's side. I think she's not totally immune, but they just went for that. That's also different. Nothing like that happens in Fire
Nothing
Blood.
Coy. Yeah.
We talked about everyone getting aged up. Alicent does not get aged up. I think she
gets aged down a little bit.
Either down or nowhere, right? I think
that's true.
She's I think actually down. Right?
She's born in 88 in Fire and Blood.
Right. So she read in Fire and Blood, she read to Jaehaerys on his deathbed, and she would have been at that time, what, 25? No, 15. Sorry.
Yeah.
15.
About the age that she seems to be in this.
About the age she seems to be in this. So they've aged her down. If you add those 9 years that Viserys has now been king, they've clearly aged her down, which is interesting, right? It makes some changes possible, like this friendship / romance.
Which they're not friends in the book.
No, they get along early on.
They
get along okay. Yes, early on. But they're not, I don't think they were really friends.
Yeah. 9 years difference between the two of them in Fire and Blood.
Correct. 9 year age difference. Yeah. And here it feels more like maybe a year or nothing.
Right.
Similar age. Yeah.
Yep.
Then we move to the scene where Rhaenyra talks with her mother, Emma. Rather, her mother tells her that you'll be here soon. This is our battlefield. You're going to be in a birthing bed someday, and with a royal womb, it's your job to give heirs, which is a major theme in this episode at least, but probably, without spoiling too much, probably will ring true throughout the series.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
This HBO series. But Rhaenyra says, I'd rather serve as a knight and ride to battle in glory. And so you get kind of right off that Rhaenyra is not necessarily interested in the traditional roles that the Targaryens usually force their women into.
Yeah, and I think that maybe that characterization was one that was made to help endear her to us. That's very reminiscent of maybe some of the princesses that we're used to seeing growing up, the Mulans and, stuff like that. And so it kind of endears her a little bit to us right off the bat, especially with her, Mom, I'm just worried about you. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you. How are you? I'm not worried about the baby. How are you, Mom? And we just instantly fall in love with her.
Yeah. And spoiling a little bit in episode, right? But we don't get much between them, right? We get this lovely scene where the love is evident between them. You can tell they're very close. But we don't get, I don't think, even another look at the two of them, maybe. So sad.
Very sad. This discomfort is how we serve the realm, Emma told her. We have royal wombs, you and I. Childbirth is our battlefield.
Pass.
That's a premonition of things to come. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes, probably.
We will. Moving on to the first council meeting now.
Yes.
It's a little weird the way it starts to me. We immediately get Corlys Velaryon talking about the triarchy. It's like the first stage of business is he's worried about this group of countries from Essos that are kind of invading. They're not invading Westeros, but they're kind of infringing on shipping lanes and things like that the Westeros needs through some islands. And it's called
under the guise of getting rid of pirates. But Corlys reads between the lines and sees that they might be establishing a pretty strong foothold there.
Also of note, Corlys's family is big into shipping. So he has a vested interest in continuing to bring this up, and he does. He brings it up like 4 times. And each time they're like, shut up about the triarchy. Come on.
My gosh. Finally, Otto Hightower says the king, or what is it? His
grace
has will take it under advisement. And then he's like, so the party.
Yes, something Viserys does want to talk about.
He said he'd be delighted to talk about it.
Yes.
Which I think is great characterization setting up who Viserys is. He's described as very jovial in Fire and Blood. He likes to have a good time. I feel that Paddy Considine. Paddy Considine does a really great job of playing him, but he comes off as a little more somber than I imagine in Fire and Blood. A little bit more somber. I imagine Viserys in Fire and Blood being like, very jovial and just
he
always
comes
having
off
a good time.
More somber, but also more capable to me and more interested.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So his interest in throwing the party, totally on brand. I get that.
The tourney, I guess.
Yeah, the tourney as well as celebration fun. But he seems more interested in the goings on of the kingdom. He's still cowardly and not great at making hard decisions about them, but he seems more interested at least, right? That he knows it's his responsibility. I love what they've done with Viserys. It's one of my favorite characterizations we've got in the show so far. I think
he's fantastic. Let's keep
really
talking
good
about him throughout because he does great.
He does.
Fire and Blood has an interesting line. Many consider the reign of Viserys I to represent the apex of Targaryen power in Westeros.
Yeah.
So we're meant to see, Targaryen life in all its finery in this.
But as we know, when you hit the apex,
only one way to go.
There's only one way to go if we call it the apex. So,
yeah,
again, not to spoil, but changes they are a coming.
We get our first look at the small council, which for book readers is fun. We get to put some faces to different names. We get Lyman Beesbury.
Yes, Beesbury.
Right? Who's the master of coin.
And we have Lionel Strong as well.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a disappointment. They go to a reasonable lengths of describing him in Fire and Blood as a really capable guy. He trained as a maester for a while. He's very educated, very smart, kind of perceptive. The guy they got and the way they've had him play it feels quite different.
He's almost like an extra, but maybe we'll see more.
Yeah, he's more like a Cersei's, cabinet member guy. He's a guy Cersei would pick.
Just shut up and do your job.
To lick the boot. Yeah.
Famously in Fire and Blood, Lionel brings 2 sons with him to King's Landing when he takes his position of Master of Laws. Harwin, who becomes a captain in the Gold Cloaks, and Larys, who starts off as one of his confessors. Harwin we do get to see later on in the episode.
Oh, did we?
I know that not by name, but because I was looking at the cast on IMDb, and
okay.
I recognize that face. So
okay, interesting.
He's the one being pleasured in the pleasure house, and he yells "Silence!" so Daemon can give his little speech. That's apparently Harwin Strong.
I hate it. Okay, well we'll leave that. We'll leave that there. Okay, moving on. The next scene is Rhaenyra walks in and sees to the throne room and sees her uncle Daemon sitting there, Jaime Lannister-esque.
It's so Jaime Lannister-esque.
Yeah, a nice little fan service moment there.
Mm-hmm. And I love that they didn't show him for like the first, what was probably like 20 seconds of the conversation.
She's walking
maybe longer,
and, talking to him. Yeah.
And then
that was really well done.
Really eerie look at him and the way he's kind of seated on the throne is just
Also, the throne is fantastic. They've redone the throne from Game of Thrones, right? It's totally different.
It's not just a chair now.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's just much more grandiose. I love it.
It's not as mountainous as you kind of see in some of the Song of Ice and Fire art.
Yes.
But they definitely go to greater lengths to make it more, like you said, grandiose and bigger.
Yes. Yeah.
But, this is where we get our first look at the relationship between Rhaenyra and Daemon, and I am here for it. I think the chemistry is fantastic, if not a little creepy at some parts, but fantastic. These two play off each other so well. A nice sense of familial affection. And I thought they did a fantastic job. Loved it.
Yeah. The actress playing Rhaenyra does a fantastic job, but Matt Smith is absolutely nailing.
Holy freaking crap. Freaking crap.
He does a great job of here, like you said, being familial, but also maybe a little too familiar.
Okay, so the part that made me go was when he's like, turn around.
Yes.
When he gets the necklace. And I'm like, oh, what are you going to do?
But also, like, it's uncomfortable to talk about because it's creepy. But like the way she like takes off her other necklace and we're kind of looking right at her face. I don't know, like, I think she's playing with him a little bit too, right? I feel like it's going both ways.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
I mean, she loves her uncle as an uncle, but she's clearly learning things here to me about how adults interact.
Yeah.
I'm not saying she did anything wrong. I'm just saying this relationship is dodgy and a little uncomfortable to me.
A little uncomfortable.
Already. First scene. They're both doing a tremendous job. I think it's totally intended.
They're acting the crap out of it.
Yes. Yep. Hosting a tournament in my honor is the way Daemon puts it, because he's the heir.
He's the heir, and it's a tournament to celebrate the heir.
Celebrate the heir. His new heir. Rhaenyra corrects him.
Yeah.
But good scene.
Speaking of interesting relationships, then we shift over to the Godswood.
Oh yeah.
With Rhaenyra and Alicent having another little fun friend moment there together.
Yes.
Alicent is reading to Rhaenyra, or quizzing her more like, out of a book talking about the story of Nymeria.
Yes, and her 1,000 ships.
Mhm.
And I imagine the entire fandom screaming, Mors Mortal! When he's asking who she married, and she won't give the answer. They're like, we know.
It's like people listening to Davos Fingers episodes when we
Yes.
don't remember something,
Yes,
and
they're
we just
screaming
imagine
at
the people
us.
yelling at us.
Yeah,
We get it,
people
guys.
are angry. People are
We
angry
get
right
it.
now.
We get it.
Yeah.
Most symbolic to me is at the end of the scene where Rhaenyra reaches over and literally takes a page out of Nymeria's book.
Yes. Very hard-hitting, perhaps. Telling some future there. We'll see.
Of her potential leadership qualities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You want him to have a son, Alicent says to Rhaenyra in Godswood. She's surprised by this. And it's an interesting look at Alicent because you kind of feel like she's this just lovely little cinnamon roll, just a sweet gal. But her reaction to Rhaenyra being okay with her position, and I don't mean laying on her lap, but her position in the pecking order, is surprising. And it's kind of like a smirk. It's like she doesn't understand why you wouldn't want the power. And I think you can see a little bit in Alicent that she's got a little power hungry side to her.
Yeah. Do you
it's
think
just
that
a little
might...
moment? It's just a little thing where she kind of not recoils, but just kind of reacts to Rhaenyra being okay with her place.
Do you think some of that comes from her dad, and just always being conditioned to being like, always push for more, always push for more?
We don't know much, and we don't know much from Fire and Blood either about how she was raised early.
Sure.
We get a good look in the scene later about how she's being pushed very soon. So I don't know whether he's been pushed, but I kind of make a comparison to Marjorie a little bit. She's maybe been trained to try to work her way through this court system and
do it for the family.
Maybe even that's why she's getting this close to Rhaenyra, although again, that's pretty speculative. We don't really know that.
Sure. Well, then we go to another couple, right? We've got Viserys and Emma in the tub. Well, one's in the tub, one's not. You called it a sweet scene. Tell me what you think.
Well, it is until it isn't, right?
Sure.
He's coming to visit her. She's trying to, get a rest in a hot, well, he calls it a tepid bath. She's very uncomfortable. She's in the stage of pregnancy that is not at all comfortable. And he's coming here to just kind of spend some time with her, and they have a little discussion, and it's going to be a boy, and Rhaenyra thinks it's going to be a girl, and it's kind of nice. But it gets pretty demanding, and you're going to give me an heir, and I know it's going to be a boy, and him pinning a lot of expectations on her for something she has no control over whatsoever. And so, it goes downhill quick.
I had a dream. Oh, so did your dream talk to my womb? Like
yeah.
Was there some communication going on there?
Right.
Yeah. Viserys, the affection between the two of them is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And I say that in the sense that the bar for the way that husbands treat their wives, especially the noble husbands, I think, in Westeros, is pretty darn low to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? There's not much expected of a husband in terms of being a warm, loving, and affectionate husband. That's not what they do. And in that sense, I think Viserys, he does show some, I think, pretty genuine affection toward his wife, but he's in love with the version of her, I think, the version of her that he thinks she is meant to be. And it goes so far as, you are an heir maker first, and you're my companion second.
Welcome to being a Targaryen woman, right? That's kind of how they treat pretty much all their women, with maybe the exception of, I know there's some backlash recently against Jay Harris, but Jay Harris and Alysanne, I think, got along pretty well. I think that affection was real for them, and he certainly
a very strong partnership as well.
Partnership, yes, partnership for sure, but affection. He didn't treat her 100% either. He did some things that was not great.
There were some falling outs there.
But I wonder if maybe the affection shone through, and Viserys saw that and saw that, those parts should be there in a relationship. I wonder that.
Yeah. But as soon as she starts talking, and you've already alluded to this a little bit, as soon as she starts talking about this is going to be my last child, he doesn't reply to that. No. You can tell it bothers him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like having that ultimatum. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And good for frickin' Emma for saying it. I loved it. I love that she came out and said it. This is it.
A change too from Fire and Blood. They have given her 5 miscarriages. Five children that didn't make it anyway.
Yeah.
In Fire and Blood, I think it's only 2, but who cares? It's very sad regardless, and I understand not wanting to mourn more of them. So she says, I've mourned all the dead children I can. I mean, she's almost begging him to just, please just let this go.
Drop it. Yeah. Let it be.
Please. Like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. And she says it as a statement, but it feels like begging too. Right.
Right. And he doesn't like it. You can tell by the look on his face. He doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Quick question before we move on. They talk about if it was a girl, Rhaenyra wants the baby's name to be Visenya. Yeah. And kind of under his breath, Viserys mutters, this family already has its Visenya. Do you think he's talking to the original Visenya, sister of Aegon? Or is he talking about someone in their more immediate family?
Referring to Daemon. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought as well.
I mean, I think he's joking, but there's a little truth in the joke too.
Visenya was the more militant sister. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like they went full Maegor, right?
For sure.
In the comparison, at least not yet.
For sure.
But yeah. The next scene we have is it's the gold cloak scene. We have Daemon again in his element. Daemon has been given control of the gold cloaks. He's outfitted them with better weapons, cloaks, armor, all the good stuff that you need if you're going to terrorize your population. And they do. They do run out and round up. To be fair, these are supposedly criminals that have done things that have the punishments that they're executing out, that they're doling out. They've supposedly done these things, but there's no trials happening. There's no sort of ability to defend yourself or claim it's not you or anything.
Due process.
No due process of any kind.
Yeah.
They're just doing it. And
it feels super arbitrary.
Yes.
Rapist.
Yes. What?
Thief.
I mean, it's gross.
It's visceral.
I don't really want to spend any more time on it. It's people in power brutalizing their populace. It's terrible.
Yep. And I think that's meant to be. I think it's meant to give us, we see a Daemon who's kind of playful with his little niece and stuff, slightly creepy. You see that he's got a hunger for power. This scene shows us also a side of Daemon that maybe we wouldn't have seen if they just explained it to us. It's almost like we kind of had to see that to teach the audience, this guy's ruthless and he's a bad egg. He is a bad egg.
Yeah. And he does a great job doing it. Right. And I think our reaction, I think there's a lot of these things that kind of ring true and point to our society today. There's a lot of feeling about this kind of thing in today's society as well.
Absolutely.
And it's not the only theme in this episode that I think does that, but and it's been covered elsewhere, I'm sure. But for the sake of Daemon as a character, this scene does a great job of setting him up for exactly how brutal we can expect him to be.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I'm glad you brought up the today thing because I've got a complicated relationship with all of that. So
yes. And I don't need to walk around eggshells on it with you, but I don't want to go too hard at it either.
Nah. Yeah.
We're now
let's just say I understand that my experience is not nearly the same as many others. And I get that.
And nor mine. And I think, yeah.
Yep.
I'll just say, I think that the show creators are very vigorously nodding their head at goings on today with that scene. And
Yep, for sure.
More than just that, more coming.
And that's valid. That's valid.
We're now thrust back into the council. You are to explain your doings.
Daemon Targaryen.
Yeah. So they want an explanation from Daemon as to why he just went out and did this. And I know everyone hates Otto, but based on this episode, other than the one scene with Alicent later that we'll get to, all I can think of is like, he's right about everything.
Yeah.
He's right. Like, he's right every time.
What can I say?
Like,
and then this just goes again to show the characterization of Viserys. So Daemon is completely slandering basically Otto and his relationship with his recently deceased wife.
Yeah.
Otto finally loses his patience and starts to fire back. And who does Viserys chastise? Otto.
Yeah.
Oh, you know that Daemon says stuff like that.
Yes.
Why
do you antagonize him so? You know he's going to let loose on you. Yeah. Matt Smith again, fantastic in this scene. It's maybe my favorite scene for him in this episode.
The look that he gives Viserys after Viserys chastises Otto is just
so smug.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, just like this smug.
Yeah.
You are the biggest weakling in the world, and I have got my thumb right on top of all of you, Viserys.
He says, Viserys says to him, I just hope you don't have to maim half my city to protect it, right? And Daemon answers, time will tell. Like, I'm not apologizing for it. If I have to maim half the city, I'm going to do it. Yep. And you're going to like it.
We'll see. And then Viserys gives the classic, I don't want to punish you parent answer. Any other performances like last night will be answered for.
Yes. And the look Daemon gives back to him is
yeah, okay.
Yeah. I know I'm gonna get through it anyway. Whatever you go with, I'm just gonna work my way through it and be fine.
Right.
You have no power over me.
Yep.
Yeah. Nice little Alysanne reference there at the end. Viserys mentions that the city's been in decline since her passing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I only have one more real quick thing for this scene, and I think it was maybe even in the first scene too. We get a sense that Corlys and Daemon are maybe, I don't know about close, but aligned.
Yeah,
they seem kind of in lockstep a little bit, which is interesting. I don't remember feeling that way in Fire and Blood. It made me want to go back and read it a little more closely. Won't spoil stuff that we know happens, but at this point in Fire and Blood, I didn't remember them being buddy.
Yep, or at least Daemon having Corlys's support.
Yeah, right. So, anything else for this section before we move to the pleasure house?
Yeah, and I don't even have too much for the pleasure house.
I don't either. I just hate that scene.
You hate it?
I don't need it. It doesn't add much. It's maybe Matt's worst scene too. Like the way he like covers his face with his arm in anger when he can't perform.
Finish. Yeah.
Like, and he can't finish. I don't know, it just looked totally unnatural.
It's really uncomfortable. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. And my Saria is like, meh. I don't.
Right.
She doesn't do a lot for me. I'm not talking about sexually. I mean, like the character doesn't do a lot for me so far. We'll see where that goes.
Yep. The White Worm.
The White Worm. Yeah.
What a gross nickname, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more fitting for Daemon.
For sure.
Get it?
His name's Matt White. I like how people have started calling him on Twitter Matt Damon. Have you seen that?
Matt Damon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see America World Police? Did you see that one?
No.
Oh.
I always disappoint you when I say
Matt
movies.
Damon. They have a Matt Damon little puppet, and it only ever says Matt Damon. It just says its own name and that weird voice that I did.
So he's like Hodor.
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, or Groot.
Okay.
Tourney. We're at the tourney.
Okay, here we go.
Boy, my wife is rooting hard for Kristen Cole.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
She's crushing on that guy pretty hard.
No spoilers. But
Well, join the ranks, sis.
yeah, join the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
He is an attractive gentleman, and clearly from Dorne with that brown hair. Clearly.
He looks great. He looks great.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. So in Fire and Blood, there isn't a known tourney to celebrate the birth of Viserys' son.
No.
We do have a tourney to celebrate Viserys' ascension to the throne in 103. And that's where Kristen Cole first comes on the scene, where he did beat Daemon at the joust and at the melee. I like that they kind of combined that here. He beats him at the joust, and then they fight it out hand to hand.
Is that different than the tourney that happened? It must be different than the tourney that happens to celebrate their 5th year anniversary.
I think so. Yeah.
Alicent and Viserys. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This I have real problems with the tourney. We'll get more into it in the next scene, but
okay.
Like I don't understand why Daemon can just
trip
the horse.
What's with that?
Like Eowyn, my wife, was like, well, he can't just do that. I'm like, yeah, they'll probably tell him he can't do it or whatever. And then they don't. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And then he rubs salt in the wound by getting Alicent's favor. But
oh my gosh.
Because it's Otto's, well, they say eldest son, that's different than in Fire and Blood, but they say Otto's eldest son that he cheats by tripping the horse. And then he goes and gets Alicent's favor to rub it in. And
not only that, but Alicent's like happy to get it.
Yes.
Give it. And she's like cheering for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put down that's the ultimate flex by Daemon against Otto.
Huge flex.
Oh my gosh.
Otto can't do it.
He can't do crap. Yeah. I wondered about that too. Is it like a baseball rule or something where like you're not supposed to throw the ball at the batter, but if you do, the batter just takes his base and the game goes on. But even then, that's still like a penalty of sorts.
But you don't win. It looks like he won this bout.
Because the guy didn't get up. Yeah.
The guy didn't get up and he moved on and kept jousting. So
Or is it a sense of just privilege where who's going to tell Daemon no?
Well, that's what I wanted. If it's really just meant to show us that Daemon can get away with whatever.
With anything. Viserys just kind of like, the guy's dad is sitting right next to the king and he still didn't do well.
Yeah, exactly.
Tough luck.
There's also
that Daemon.
Oh, what a scamp. Gosh. What a little scamp. We get some Queen Who Never Was love. So the Queen Who Never Was is Rhaenys. They call her that because she was passed over for Viserys.
That's by a Baratheon, and her mom was a Baratheon.
Yeah, in Fire and Blood, of course, she was passed over by Baelon, not by Viserys, but in the show, she was passed over by Viserys. Yeah, and it was a Baratheon getting her favor, like you said. Calls her the Queen Who Never Was, and Otto says you should have his tongue out for that. And it's a little brilliant little piece because it also shows us there Viserys's ruling style.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Daemon. He's not going to take somebody's tongue out for that. He's just going to let them talk. It doesn't hurt anything, right?
It's groovy, man.
He does not want conflict. He does not want conflict.
They've achieved peace. Things are going really well. Let's not mess with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in my realm where I'm not really the king of my realm, but that's kind of my parenting style too. Is like, are you really hurting anybody right now?
Yeah.
Let's chill out here.
Yeah.
Things are okay. Things are okay.
Don't overreact.
Speaking of Rhaenys, one of my favorite parts of the whole episode is the absolute gossip between her and Corlys just sitting there. It is so choice.
Yeah.
I want them to be my aunt and uncle, maybe my dad and mom. I just love them both. Yeah. And we just get a little snippet of it here, and I can't wait for more.
It's very subtly done, but you can tell it seems like they have like a really strong relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't get details. Maybe Corlys mistreats her too, just like all the other relationships we see in this episode. But you don't. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're very tight.
It feels like Corlys comes home from small council meetings and just unloads everything onto Rhaenys, just like venting,
Yeah,
and she just eats it up and she's like,
Yeah.
those sons of bitches.
yeah. Should have put me up there. It'd be much better. Yeah.
Another funny thing that I just liked was the Master of Coin, Lyman Beesbury, casting bets, making bets.
Yes, I saw that.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, what did he bet? He bet 500 on Damon or something, or
5 dragons, I think it was.
5 dragons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good old Beesbury.
Yep.
Want to move on to the birthing tourney overlay?
Oh my gosh.
This is the scene. This is
how brutal.
The one that's been talked about quite a bit. I have a lot of feelings about this, but it's actually not about the birthing side. It's about the other side.
Okay.
I guess starting with the birthing side, I don't think I have anything to say that hasn't been said in a lot of places already. In our world, for sure, that's whether or not they choose to try to take the baby out and save it at the expense of the mother is definitely the mother's choice. In our society, that's the way it should be. I think a lot of people are really upset that that's not the way it is in this show, and I get that.
Right.
It was brutal, and it's terrible to watch, and we all hate how these women are treated. She absolutely should have been the one given that choice, right?
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say other than that. The brutality of it was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. But also it was an effective scene. And I'm not big on pain for effect. I don't
shock
want
value.
Shock value stuff. Yeah. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the way this scene was done was pretty good. As jarring and terrible as it was pretty good.
Achieved the effect. Yeah. Grand Maester Melos, which really he actually didn't come into power until late, or into his position until later. Another slight fire and blood difference. It was Grand Maester Runciter before that.
Runciter earlier,
yeah, but no big deal. Combine them, it's fine. It's necessary for the father to make an impossible choice.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like you said, what's been said has been said. You've got
patriarchy.
Yep. Ugh, it's ugly. And then as she's being held down, has no idea what's happening, even as the blade is brought to her stomach to make the first cut. She still has no idea what's going on.
No idea what's happening. No discussion. I mean, they're so far along the scale of the wrong choice. There's all sorts of other points that would have been better than what they did. At least informing her what's happening out of respect would be the bare minimum bar. But I mean, There's so much more they should have done differently.
And if Emma had been given the choice, she would have made it.
Probably, but it
doesn't matter.
Beside the point.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Probably, but it's kind of beside the point.
Yep.
So
that was her choice to make. Ugh.
So my problem with this scene is the other half, right? And I think the idea that they're trying to get at here was pretty brilliant, of comparing the birthing bed to the jousting war and stuff.
Men are out fighting their battle while she is fighting hers, as alluded to in the earlier scene.
So I think they took the bait to try to make it a battle, but it really just took me. I was really frustrated with this scene, to the point where if we weren't going to cover it, Matt, I would have walked away and I wouldn't have watched the series anymore. I was that upset by this scene.
Okay,
this is not how tourneys go. No one would put their son in a tourney if you were expected to get off and then kill each other.
If you could just wantonly kill.
And the main theme of this first episode, and one of the main themes of Fire and Blood, and I presume House of the Dragon in general, and the name of this very episode, Heirs of the Dragon, is that heirs are super fucking valuable. Nobody's going to put their heirs or their sons in jousting tournaments if there's an expectation that, you can just get off your horses and kill each other afterward. They use blunted weapons. These are sporting games. They're not war. And so it was really frustrating for me to watch. And it also takes you, it has effect to me further downstream on canon, right? Because they're doing a lot of interesting stuff, inserting some things, we'll get to more of it later, inserting some things here that affect, the book canon, the Song of Ice and Fire canon a little bit. And when they do something like this, it's like, well, now do people expect that this is okay at tourneys? We do. I don't want to pretend we don't have instances where things get violent at tourneys. We know this happens with Dunk and Egg. We know it happens even later without spoiling.
But this makes it seem like it's just normal.
It makes it seem commonplace. This is what we expect in a joust. It's ridiculous. No one would enter them knowing this. And it broke me. I honestly, I would, if we weren't covering it, I would have given up on the series and walked away. It's ridiculous. And
that fits.
No one, it really undercuts the theme of the heirs too, right? Like no one would do this with their sons. You wouldn't go in there. You wouldn't do it.
I agree. One thing I did like about the tourney, the joust, was in other depictions of jousts that I've seen, they make a pass at each other, break their lances or whatever, and then they kind of like go back and they talk to their squire, their guy, they get a new lance, they get kind of ready, catch their breath a little, then they go again.
They get the towel and the bucket of water and the sponge like a boxing match.
Like almost. A boxing match, yeah. I loved in this one how it was so fast-paced, like you made your pass and then your squire threw you another lance and you just caught it as you were turning and you went for another. I thought that was awesome.
The other guy's going to come stab you in the back, right? Like you better get out there.
That was awesome.
I did. But the execution of the fights was excellent. The way they shot it was great, and I really liked a lot of those choices.
Just the wanton killing. Yes. I agree. It took me out of the scene for a minute. It left me going, why in the world are they doing it? You can't do that.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
I know jousts have different rules depending on the joust. We also read that in the main series. Different jousts have different rules and everything, but nowhere have we seen like you could just straight up murder a guy in front of everybody else, and everyone's like.
Yeah, so I don't want to spoil it because it does happen later in Fire and Blood, and so I don't want to spoil it. But there are instances where people go too far and they're punished for it. Punished for it. So it's just totally unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the other one, one of the things that I hated about the tourney was the crier guy that's just like announcing what's going to happen. And my least favorite one is, what does he say? He says, where is it? He says, Damon would like to continue the match afoot or something like just cuz.
Yeah.
Like, does the guy who just won the joust get any say in this? Maybe he'd like it to be over. Like, what? How do you decide when you get to continue or not?
So it's like when the loser gives up, that's when it's over.
Yeah, that's
it was
weird.
Kind of unclear.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. So as effective as a scene as this was symbolically, with the two battles, as it were, being fought.
Yes.
And in my opinion, also people needlessly dying or not having a choice over whether they live or they die. Yes. You get that on both sides.
Right.
There were some problems that take you out of it, but it's all on the jousting side. I agree with
you.
To me, it is,
yes.
Yeah. As hard as the Emma scene was to watch, it was effective at what it was doing. It stays with you. It stays with you. We don't have an account in Fire and Blood of that actually happening. We do know that it goes as far as to say that son did die, but no account of Viserys having to make that choice. However, another character, Rhaegar Baratheon, does make that choice in Fire and Blood. That might have had to have been for Dragons After Dark. I don't know, but I just said it, so there it is.
Well, it happened earlier, so it won't be something that happens in this show.
Yes, that's right. Yep. So we're good.
But yes.
So they still brought that conflict into Fire and Blood here, or into House of the Dragon this way.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And yeah, brutal. Again, this is to me very much a nod to things going on these days in our very country, with abortion rights and women's bodily autonomy and control. And anyway, I think it's reminiscent, and I think it's meant to be. It's on purpose.
For sure.
So
no question.
Okay. You want to move on?
Yeah. So we get this ominous scene at the end of that scene where Melos is holding the young infant Balon,
Mhm.
and the baby's crying, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes into like coughing a little bit,
Yeah.
but not enough to like lead you to believe that something's wrong. And then the next scene, they show the baby wrapped up on the pyre.
Wrapped up. Yep.
Yeah.
And with
Also
Emma as
effective.
well, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
yeah, a new heir. They named it Balon. It doesn't last more than a day. Yeah, you're right. That looks like the baby's maybe in trouble immediately if you can interpret that sound. It's very brief, but it's
Super
a hint,
brief.
and you're like, is that what is that?
And you're like, no,
Um,
no, no.
Eowyn was like, oh no, it's gonna die, isn't it?
Mhm.
And yes, it is.
Mhm.
Uh,
You mentioned that maybe your favorite Matt Smith acting moment was previously.
yeah,
This one was mine.
yeah,
This one was mine. You get from this guy who had just led the Gold Cloaks out in this ruthless killing spree or maiming spree, whatever you want to call it. Here you see him, and his sorrow is palpable.
yeah,
In that moment, he is a brother and he's an uncle. He's sensitive. He's, I think, empathetic towards Rhaenyra. And I thought that scene was beautifully acted by Damon and by Matt Smith, excuse me, and really added a different dimension and depth of character that I thought was excellent.
yeah. I agree. It was well done. It shows another side of Damon as well. You know, he really is kind of, I think, all about family. That's not true. He's about personal ascendance, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and
Mm-hmm.
family, right? I think he very much is go Targs go, you know.
Sure.
So when tragedy strikes his family like this, it hits him. I think I don't think that was fake. I think that's a real part of Damon's character and who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course we get the next scene with him, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
We do see some angst here from Rhaenyra as well, blaming her dad. Fair, totally fair.
Fair.
You know, he basically chose to kill her mom without giving her any choice, nor telling Rhaenyra to let her come see.
That's what I was going to say. I missed covering or mentioning that in our talking about the last scene is that Rhaenyra, everyone finds out about it except for her.
Yeah.
And she's left sitting there and wondering.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
Terrible.
And then she's the one that has to take charge at the funeral.
Yeah, she does. And, you know, this happens in Fire and Blood. Again, this happens much earlier. She's 8 when her mother dies in Fire and Blood. She's also, you know, I think they've made a change here for the show that in Fire and Blood, it's very clear that she's doted on by her parents. She is called the Realm's Delight. Everyone loves her. She's celebrated everywhere she goes, every room she comes in. In the show, she's more kind of almost forgotten. She's kind of just, she performs her roles and she's around, but she's not a central piece to this family, right? It's kind of an interesting change. I don't really know why they did it.
You can tell Viserys is affectionate towards her. There's where she comes into the council room late and he's kind of like sweet with her and everything.
Yeah.
And but not to that degree that you pick up on in the book. Yeah. Speaking of council room. Yeah. So they're talking about the succession.
Mm-hmm. Corlys says, like, what are you talking about? We've already got an heir. It's Daemon. We know this. Otto, why are you trying to create problems where there aren't problems? We've got an heir. It's Daemon. Stop it. Let's go to bed.
Right.
But Otto and others, it's not just Otto, they're not having it. They think Daemon's going to wreck shit if he gets in charge, right? And frankly, again, Otto's right. Daemon would make a terrible king.
Is this something that has to happen in the middle of the night, though? Like,
no, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think this is the scene where Melos says, if the fate should, cast you down or something. And then implies that maybe Daemon would do it on purpose, right, and kill him.
Yeah, this is the time to do it. So maybe
they want to do it sooner rather than later. But no, it doesn't feel like it needs to happen like right away. Also, this might not be the middle of the night one, is it? There's also the next one. Anyway, we'll get to it. I might be confusing two of them, but Daemon's spying on them while they have this meeting.
This is the one. Yeah, this is the next one is where they are talking about what he said at the pleasure house.
Heir for a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of reasons not to do this, not to name a new successor. It's not usually done, right? The candidates are women, and Lionel Strong says, like, the Westeros won't stand for this. Like, we've decided it's men only.
I mean, Aegon had an older sister. Jaehaerys had an older sister.
Right. And it's bunk, right? I mean, it's garbage. We know that. But to them, this is precedent. And people don't like change. And we can't just on a whim go do this just because, There's a reason you've been trying to have an heir for so long, because that's how it's done, right? You got to have a male heir. Don't break 100 years of tradition by naming a queen, Lionel says.
Yeah.
If you're worried about stability.
Because the Targaryen dynasty is a pinnacle of stability already.
Yes.
So.
But I do love at the end of the scene, Paddy Considine Viserys, he blows up. My wife and son are dead.
Yep. Brilliant.
Mentioned, even drops the Feast for Crows book name.
Mm-hmm.
And just walks away. So it's a good moment for him, but also it shows us again, he's gonna find ways out of dealing with conflict.
Sure.
Especially when it's got to do with his brother, right? So he's running away from it again.
You asked me to choose between my daughter and my brother.
Yeah.
Well, I love my brother, but I'm gonna pick my daughter every time.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. 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 It feels like it should be an easy choice almost to us.
And I would expect him, my brother, to pick his daughter every time over me.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise. Yeah.
Yep. So just when we're thinking like, Otto, you're right. You're absolutely right about Daemon. Otto goes and reminds us that he's an absolute, utter, complete prick in every bad word you can name him.
Yeah. So he's sending a raven to Old Town, plotting, scheming, looks like.
Yeah, we don't quite know why.
And then Alicent comes in, and it's immediately pressuring her to leverage her to get information about Rhaenyra, to suggest that she go
comfort
the king.
Ugh.
And by the way, put on one of your mother's dresses when you do it. Yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah,
it's creepy. It's not good. It's you wonder whether, because the way he says it is kind of it's not a command to go to go ingratiate yourself with the king and make him fall in love with you, but it's insinuated.
Absolutely.
And you wonder if it's been this passive aggressive relationship between them the whole time, right? That he's just always pressuring her to do these things that she does not want to do.
And he shows just enough fatherly affection to keep her. You
got it at the tourney too, when she gave her favor, right? He looked at her when she did it, and you could sense he's like glowering at her, and she's like a little nervous about it, but also she can't really say no. And so she's kind of won that one, right? She has to do it and whatever, but you can tell he's trying to like inflict upon her what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so while he's right about Daemon, he's creepy and manipulative, and using his daughter in not a good way.
So are you.
Yeah.
Then we get Daemon at the pleasure house again. He's rented the venue out for he and his friends.
Yeah.
This is the aforementioned when we get our look at Harwin Strong. Apparently that's him who yells silence so that Daemon can give his speech. I thought it was pretty brilliantly done that we don't actually see Daemon say the heir for a day line.
Yeah.
But he doesn't deny it later.
It's given all the Targ stands online ammunition for saying, you'd never say it. Otto just made it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that in Fire and Blood he did say it, so I believe he said it. And like, it's exactly the kind of bullshit thing Daemon would say.
For sure.
So it doesn't seem like something we should be denying. But
which is sad because it's throwing back in our faces that real palpable sorrow that I just talked about that he demonstrated before. And it's like, well, is he just doing that because he's in front of his boys now?
Performative, yeah. Maybe. You do things when you're grieving sometimes, you do things when you're drunk sometimes that you're not proud of, that even when you're doing them, you're like, I shouldn't be doing this.
I shouldn't be doing this.
You could say that maybe it was a moment like that for Daemon, but he doesn't show any remorse for it
later.
So usually when you're doing those things and you know they're wrong, you show remorse for it, right? You have guilt. He doesn't seem to have that. So
it's almost, sorry, go ahead.
Well, just so it kind of moves me beyond this was just a drunken mistake and he wishes he hadn't done it, because he doesn't seem to have any remorse.
On the other hand, to your point, we've seen earlier that he has King Viserys under his thumb, and he knows that he has King Viserys under his thumb. So it could be one of those things of, I don't cower to you. I don't apologize to you. That's like his big thing is, I've got the king of the realm under my thumb.
Yes.
You know, I may not be the heir anymore. I may just be the leader of the Gold Cloaks, but the king answers to me. I've got immunity in all things with the king. And I'm not going to say sorry to him because I don't have to. That's
not something I do. This relationship isn't that. It's one directional. I don't do that.
Correct.
I'm above him. Yeah. Viserys is livid, of course. But, Daemon does have a point. He sees that Viserys is weak. In the throne room, he's like, you're weak. You're going to get run over. I may be a monster, but I would at least protect you and protect our family. Listen, he's not wrong about that, maybe. But the way he's going to do it is going to end up being worse than the alternative.
Right. In Fire and Blood, I won't say too much here because it could get into Dragons After Dark territory, but Daemon left of his own accord when the new succession was announced. When it was announced that Rhaenyra would take over, he was so mad, and he went to Dragonstone. The rest could get spoilery, so won't say that, but that's another minor difference.
Yeah, interesting. Instead of being like sent there, he just went. Well, next we get, really the last scene. It's kind of a splicing of several different scenes, but it's Rhaenyra becoming the heir, right? And we have this great shot of Balerion's big honking skull floating above these candles.
So cool.
And we get Viserys running his hand over the flames, and everybody's going to be back out with the Targaryens can't burn thing again. Thanks, guys. Thanks for putting that back in. I have to deal with that shit again. When you look at the dragons, what do you see? I see us. Without them, we're just like everyone else. Yep. The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. I love that.
Yeah. It shows this understanding that Viserys has that you haven't seen throughout the episode, and that you don't get in Fire and Blood, frankly.
No. No, you don't get in Fire and Blood. It's a little bit, I mind it less, I guess, because I like this one. Yeah. But it's kind of informative on the main series, right? It kind of implies, I think at least, you can interpret it a few different ways maybe, but the idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. I think that means anybody could ride them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter your blood, doesn't matter magic, nothing like that. You guys ride dragons because you happen to have the eggs.
And it reminded me even of Dany's scene of leaving Dasnik's pit, and to where Drogon is kind of running the show for her, actually.
Yes. Yeah. He's in charge.
Yep.
Yeah. And he so in this scene he indicates that the dragons brought doom to Valyria and could us too if we.
I thought that was a fascinating line.
Yeah. We can't control them, and if we don't remember our history, they'll destroy us too.
Theories abound about what happened to Valyria, but in Viserys' mind, at least, it was the dragons that did it. I'd like to learn more about that. I wonder if that will come up in later episodes.
Yes. Yeah. So now we get interspliced with that. It's clear that he's making Rhaenyra the heir. So we get a sweet scene with Alicent getting her ready for her ceremony. The two of them, clearly very close. I said maybe Alicent's being used to get close to Rhaenyra. That may be, but they're close anyway. Yeah, it seems genuine. No, there's no hint that she's treacherous or being used or anything like that.
Right. Oh, one quick thing before we get to the big conversation that we're going to be having about this scene. I had forgotten this, if I ever internalized it in the first place, that Viserys was the last Targaryen to ride Balerion.
Yes. Yeah. Viserys rode Balerion and then didn't pick another dragon, which is interesting because he's a terrible fit for Balerion. It doesn't seem like, right? Like it in Fire and Blood, it mentions that Balerion at that point was slow and weak and old, and that it didn't take a warrior of strong heart to really tame him or anything. It was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna take the kid around the yard. Fine. When can I sleep again?
Exactly.
But yeah.
So Viserys reveals to Rhaenys that Aegon had a dream/vision of what we know of the others in the north, who would come in a great long winter and destroy all of humanity. This is something that has not been mentioned in the books, and but apparently it is passed down from Targaryen king to Targaryen king for them to prepare for. By Aegon's interpretation, the Targaryens have to be in rule in order to stop this threat. They are the ones who will stop the others. Dun 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 dun. Great big reveal.
Yeah. Huge reveal. And the language throughout is very interesting. He doesn't mention others or White Walkers or anything like that. He just says it's a threat. Terrible winter gusting out of the distance in the north. Right. Darkness on those wings. But he doesn't know really what it is. It's interesting. You wonder whether Aegon knew more and it's kind of been lost in the history, or whether he didn't. It was always vague. But we don't have a lot of detail here. All of Westeros must stand against it. A Targaryen must unite them against the cold and the dark. I don't know why it has to be a Targaryen,
right? But
they believe that that's true, which is interesting. I think we'll cover more of this in Davos or Dragons After Dark, maybe. But I don't know. I felt it was a huge moment, but also he called this dream the Song of Ice and Fire. I was a little let down.
A little on the nose.
Well, there's just been so much speculation about what that really means, in the fandom. And the dream, have you ever named a dream, Matt? I've never named one of my dreams. That he named his dream the Song of Ice. I don't know. It let me down. It let me down a little bit. It
was a very visceral dream.
That's true.
More in Dragons After Dark, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, this reveal not only connects House of the Dragon to the main series, to Game of Thrones. I think of it like what Peter Jackson did with The Hobbit, connecting it to Lord of the Rings by bringing that stuff into the Hobbit films about the Necromancer and Galadriel and Elrond and Sauron coming back and everything. He kind of retconned it into the Hobbit films to kind of connect to them, to Lord of the Rings. That's what we're doing here. and to add a little more gravitas to the situation. I mean, other than that, I called it on Twitter. It's Keeping Up with the Targaryens. It could be thought of a soap opera about this family, but
Yes.
now you're throwing in this looming threat to the realm that they need to prepare for, which makes it a little more interesting probably to the viewer.
All sorts of questions that come from it, though, right? Yeah, totally makes it more interesting to the viewer. It's super risky because as far as I can tell, Viserys was operating without a net for over a decade with not telling anyone. Like, what if he had just died? Right?
Yep.
Because I assume maybe he did tell Daemon. I don't know, but
that's the
because he
danger.
was the heir for a while.
For all the kings is what if you die too soon?
Yeah. I mean, and they've had throughout the history, they've had some that died pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, when you choose to tell and who you tell, he didn't tell Daemon, I don't think. But also just, why don't they do maybe more for Davos After Dark, but why aren't they behaving differently if they really believe this?
Yeah.
Why in A Song of Ice and Fire has the Night's Watch fallen to, what is it, 900 men, 800 men, something? Like, why is it the state that it's in? They must have lost it, right? And there's all sorts of theories we'll get to about that.
I agree. Just one final thing for me is what do you think did it for Viserys being okay with naming Rhaenyra his heir? Do you think it was, well, I'm out of options now, Emma's dead?
I think Heir for the day was the catalyst, and all the poisoning of the ear from Otto and the others convincing him that he was bad, convincing Viserys that Daemon was bad. When he heard Heir for a day, it was like last straw. Like, let's do
choice
this.
Made.
Let's move on. Yeah. Let's move on.
I agree with all those things. I'll maybe add in a little bit of guilt.
Oh yeah,
guilt about Emma.
But, yeah, I can see that. The dagger pisses me off a little bit, but we don't need to talk about it.
The darn dagger.
The darn dagger.
It's the C-3PO and R2-D2 of
it doesn't even exist in the books. It doesn't even exist. So, like, I don't know how that.
Well, there is a Valyrian dagger, but
it's plainly made. The cat spot dagger.
Valyrian steel, plainly made.
Yeah. I think that's all I got for this scene. You got more?
Nope. I loved that the closeout music was the Game of Thrones scene.
Good music.
That's what I got.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, now then we're going to move into Dragons After Dark. So those that don't know, Dragons After Dark is going to be a spoilery section. So if you have not read Fire and Blood, or you don't want to know what we think is coming, turn it off now and come back next week and listen again, because we're going to get all up in this episode's business, talking about what it revealed and where we're going to head for the next episode coming out in a couple days.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Coming soon. Wow.
So, boom, ba-da-dun.
Dragons After Dark.
There you go. If the jingle thing doesn't work, we'll use that.
Okay. So do you want to just talk about what we really think is coming in the next episode? Should we just start there?
Yeah. I'll throw one out, then you can throw one out, and we'll get through this. I think we will start to see at least a courtship between Viserys and Alicent. Start to see them start to grow closer. Yeah. And whether that's anything actual affectionate wise, or Alicent's kind of doing it out of a sense of duty, I'm interested in seeing, but that will continue, I think. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a quick courtship. It's actually very quick in Fire and Blood. They marry within the year in Fire and Blood, within a year of Emma's death. And so I think it's going to be a quick courtship. We've got 10 episodes to get through about 30 years, according to George, where this series is going to start and stop, this first season. So
there's going to be at some point there's going to be a jump where they jump from the young actresses to the older actresses,
to the older actresses,
and
to
I
Emma
assume
Darcy
it
and stuff. Yeah.
be after like the wedding episodes, and then they're just going to jump like, I don't know, like 8 more years or something, and all the kids will be born and stuff, right? That exist, and they'll be at their appropriate ages or the ages that they want them to be for this show.
I agree with that.
All that to say, for the next episode, I think that courtship's going to go quick, and I think also moving quick is that Kristen Cole's going to move into the Kingsguard.
Kingsguard.
I think perhaps we'll see the death of the Westerling Knight. That's who that was.
Harold. Yeah.
Harold Westerling. I think maybe we'll see the death of him and Kristen Cole jump in. I don't know exactly how it will happen, but I think that'll happen maybe even in the next episode.
There's another knight that's following around the king the whole time.
Ryan Redwine, I think.
Do you think that's Ryan? That's what I put too.
So. He's old. He's supposed to be
an older knight.
This time.
He is the Lord Commander until 105, which is kind of where we're at in this weird timeline. So yeah, I can see either him or Harold Westerling dying and Kristen stepping in for sure.
Yeah, we're at 105 Fire and Blood time. We're in I think we're at 112.
Yeah.
Yeah. In House of the Dragon time.
I'm interested in seeing this relationship continue between Corlys and Daemon.
Yeah.
As they start to interact. We are going to get the stuff with the Triarchy and the Stepstones. We've seen that in some of the trailers. And so you can see that to start to happen pretty quick, I think.
I think it has to, because again, that courtship is going to go pretty quickly with Alicent and Viserys, and Daemon has to be away for some time before that wedding happens,
right?
For him to come back triumphantly and be forgiven by his brother. If that just happens next episode, it'd be weird. It's like, I was just angry at you and sent you away, and now 1 episode later you're back and we're fine.
You're back. Yeah,
it would feel so. I think the Stepstone. I think probably the Stepstones conversation will happen with Daemon and Corlys in the next episode. Mm-hmm. Maybe the episode after that we'll start getting actual Stepstone.
Some violence. Stuff. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
So what I was referring to in the main part of the episode is Daemon left originally when the succession was announced. He left on his own and went to Dragonstone. He took Mysaria with him, got her pregnant, and gave her a dragon's egg. That's when Viserys actually got real ticked at him, was given the dragon's egg and everything. And then that's when he sent him to Runestone to be with his wife. So it looks like they're just cutting all of that out. However, we don't see where Daemon's going to go. Viserys sent him to Runestone, and
he did take Mysaria with him, right?
He's got Mysaria with him, so I wonder if he's not going to go to Runestone at all. If he's just going to go straight to Dragonstone and the stuff with Mysaria, that's where Corlys starts meeting with him, and all this starts. So
I think we're going to get more awkward Matt Smith upper torso. Yeah, I think that's in store for the next episode.
I love him. That's not what I needed to see.
I think the next episode will be it's a little bit of a setup episode maybe for some things, but I think it might be Alicent's episode to shine a little bit. She's going to be meeting, wooing the king maybe, and also still feeling out this relationship with Rhaenyra. I think it feels real. I think they're 2 kids trying to figure it out, and I think it's very real to them. I mean, definitely on Rhaenyra's side.
I like it. That's one thing that, me, I'm very good at allowing the 2 stories to run in parallel to each other. I do it with Star Wars. I do it with Game of Thrones, The Song of Ice and Fire. And I'm interested in this take on it of Rhaenyra and Alicent. It works for me in this parallel timeline.
Here's what I don't want to see. So I'm all for it. I'm all in support, unless they're using it to generate additional conflict. Sure. Because the reality is these 2 have plenty to fight about without throwing in a personal relationship, right? And they have kids and they have claims and they have all these other things that are meaningful. And again, I don't care. It's good. I think it's a nice dynamic, right, to throw in, and it does up the stakes a little bit. But if they're doing it again for like shock value, it just feels, I don't know, a little manipulative.
Sure, I can see that.
But I do like the scenes with them, and I like seeing these kids work it out, right? It's an interesting change.
Yep. Yeah. Work it out. I like that. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what we think is going to happen in the next episode.
Yeah, that's about all I got.
Look for that. Take it to the bank, listeners.
Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank.
I guess as far as other spoilery type things, I think we already touched on Daemon and Corlys. This kind of sets up their relationship in this first episode. I didn't want to say anything in the main part of the cast, but this is kind of as a pretense to, what they're going to do in the Stepstones later. But I guess the big stuff is just if you want to talk more about the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy.
Yeah, I don't know what to say really. I mean, we talked. I actually went back and listened to our Team John episode, or about half of it, earlier this week, because I couldn't remember where we talked about what we call the Aegon Nose theory. That
it was there, right?
We did talk about it there. We didn't.
Okay.
I didn't finish all of the episode. I didn't get through it, but we talk about the themes for sure. I don't know if at the end of the episode we wrap around and talk about that theory specifically, because I didn't finish it, but we talk very much about it. And I say, when I talk about this on Twitter and stuff, I say we came up with it, but I don't know that that's really even true. I mean, in this episode, we talk the Team John episode, we talk about the fact that Joe Magician has this great essay up. It's called Aemon the Dreamer. If you just Google Joe Magician, Aemon the Dreamer, you'll probably find it. And he outlines a lot of what Maester Aemon here, what his goal in life was and what his path was in his journey of, figuring all of this stuff out. And he kind of, I think, implies that that's what he helped set Rhaegar on his path to finding it. And he outlines a lot of things in the article. It's great. You should go read it. But we also, we kind of theorized even beyond that too, that, I hadn't read his thing when we were coming up with these ideas, but, that Aemon was very close to Daeron the Drunken, right? And that Daeron the Drunken probably had these prophecies. And if the Song of Ice and Fire dream is lost during the Dance of Dragons, maybe Daeron the Dreamer he's the savior, right? Like he brought it all back.
He brought it back. And then you've got the connection with Aemon and Bloodraven, with Bloodraven eventually going to the Wall.
Yes.
I mean, we had inklings of these little theories, these little niblets of the theories that we brought together since 2014, Scad. That's crazy, man.
A long time. Yeah.
And it's kind of validating to see some of this stuff coming through, and we're like slight connections to it, tenuous at best at some parts, but
I don't think we ever fleshed out the Aegon Nose theory anywhere, like in essay form or anything, which is too bad, because it would have made us look really smart.
It would have made us look really cool. But
we did link it to Aegon 1 too. We said maybe that was the impetus, that he had a dream also, like Daenerys did.
Yeah.
That's why he burst out of his room after 7 days and decided to just go do it.
Yeah.
Right. Is that he got confirmation with a dream like this.
So listeners, if you'd like to go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Davos Fingers, join us there and look up Team John. If you just search for that in the search bar, it'll come up.
Find it. Yeah, you'll find it. Yeah.
And that, of course, is our theory. It's called Team John because it's the idea that there was a group of people who knew about John's potential or his destiny and were actively working to put him in the right situation to achieve that destiny, which is to become at least a half of the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, and as minor spoiler,
it spirals
to that episode,
into stuff.
Yeah, it spirals into stuff because what we come to terms with as we're talking about it is, well, Aemon, the Targaryen side of all these people that we're talking about, they don't really have a connection to Ned or others that may have tried to make a Team John, but they had information through other sources that Ned didn't have, and they've kind of come to this area of support in a different way, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think they? So I figure Aegon 1 had the dream itself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he told his sisters?
I don't know.
As heirs, I wonder.
I don't know if he did.
They shared everything, right? Like it feels like
he would have.
It feels like maybe he would have. But anyway, at least he would have passed it to his own son, Aenys. Aenys would have passed it to Aegon the Uncrowned, who never took the throne, right? But he would have told him, I think. Aegon the Uncrowned maybe told Rhaenyra before he took to the skies, like, hey, this is a thing.
I just got to tell somebody.
I might die because I'm going up there to fight a really big dragon, so you better take this information. Then she, of course, lived a long time. She could have told J.A. Harris, and then J.A. Harris to Viserys, and
and who knows if Maegor knew?
Well, right. So if Visenya knew, then she might have told Maegor.
She might have been the one to tell Maegor. Yeah,
I'm not sure Maegor had the mental capacity to process any of that, nor care.
Right, that's true. Or care. Yeah, that might have been the thing. Maybe he was told out of duty, hey, we tell people this, we tell new kings this, but as far as doing something about it. But it also seems like none of them really did too much about it.
Yeah.
Well, the Targaryens did make sure to stalk the Night's Watch to varying degrees.
To varying degrees.
Mm-hmm. Jaehaerys and Alysanne took a vested interest in it.
Yep.
I wonder if maybe a lot of that was lost by Baelor the Blessed with his book burning and everything, and
book burning and kind of crazy. And
if he decided it wasn't for him,
he believed in the faith, and what do I need all these other prophecies for? The faith is all that matters, right?
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
And then possible. From just a practical sense, this is an oral tradition.
Yeah.
That's just a big game of telephone over centuries. And to start off with, it wasn't like Aegon received actual instructions from a credible source. It was a dream he had to which he had his own interpretation of the dream. And then he passed along, not facts, he passed along his interpretation of a dream that he had.
Yeah. Imagine 300 years. Imagine hearing a story about an ancestor of yours 300 years ago who you didn't know, right? And that he had a dream, and that for the past 300 years, your family has been following that dream.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no details. Like, you'd think it's nuts.
Right.
You'd be like, all right, cool. I'm going to go live my life and become an accountant. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want me to do with this?
Eventually, you're going to be looking at your watch going, oh, it still hasn't happened? Well,
yes.
Then right. I'm probably going to, odds are things are going to be okay.
So some interesting stuff came up. This is the last thing I'll say about this. We can be done with it if you want, but
sure.
Some interesting ideas came up on Twitter when we were talking through some things this week. And the theory, the dream is called the Song of Ice and Fire, right? And dragons clearly are fire, the Targaryens are fire, but the ice half is a little weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's just they're talking about the cold wind to be met by the fire, which is possible.
Right.
But I wondered if maybe the Starks and B-Word, friend of ours, kind of helped me work through some of this as we were chatting back and forth on Twitter. But
yeah, it was great.
I wondered if maybe the Starks are also getting portions of this, that, and actually came from another guy. Oh no, I've forgotten his Twitter handle now, who asked about there must always be a Stark in Winterfell, which kind of started this whole conversation. And I wondered if maybe they're getting dreams or messages somehow from their Weirwood connections or through their warging capabilities.
Yeah, the Weirwood stuff is fascinating.
And if they know that it's important for that family to stay in Winterfell, to be there to combat the others also, that it's not just a Targaryen dream, there's also the other half, a Stark dream or a Stark message, right, that they have. And maybe that for Torrhen Stark specifically, when Aegon made him kneel in the Riverlands, that he told him that he's like, hey, it's important that I'm in charge here, and this is why. And Torrhen was like, oh, that makes sense. I have a similar family belief structure based on our own dreams that we got from Weirwoods forever ago. So, okay, I'm down. I'll go back up north. You do your thing. Seems it's very tinfoily. No evidence, but it was a fun exercise.
It makes a lot of sense, really. I was trying to find that tweet so we could give credit where due to
Yes.
The fella that brought it up. Oh, at Joe Grinding Teeth.
Oh, Joe Grinding Teeth. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
His handle, I don't know if it was misspelled. It's Joe Grinding
Grinding. Okay.
Teeth. Yeah.
Okay.
Then the name is Joe's Grinding Teeth. So
Okay.
at Joe Grinding Teeth. So if you're out looking for him.
If you're out looking for him.
Yep.
So thanks to him and B Word for
great discussion.
Walking through it. It was fun. Yeah.
Great discussion while I was gallivanting around talking about other fun things. But
Dude, that was fun though. The Will You Buy Me Pats? That was hilarious.
The Star Wars thing.
Yes.
Just go to our Twitter page, guys.
Yeah.
Well, go forth and watch the next episode, Khalasar.
Yeah.
And
right.
Tell us what you think. Tell us, make fun of us for the things we get wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Heap praise upon us for the things we get right.
Yes.
Of which there will be many, much.
And enjoy the series.
And have fun. Yeah, have fun with this thing.
You want to give a quick sign off, or was that your sign off?
I'll just sign off saying Steve Toussaint, if that's how you pronounce his name, is the best Corlys Valerian that ever was.
He was very good. He's very good. I'll sign off just saying, book faithful, and I'm talking to myself here as much as I'm advising anyone else.
You really are. And
this is going to get messy. Like, our faith is going to be challenged with how the canon is affected by this show. And just try to keep an even keel, because this shit is going to get messy. Just enjoy the ride.
You can do it. We believe in you. Bye.